Bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour. Bienvenue à Cannes. It's a beautiful, windy Tuesday day. Thank you for joining us. Super jazzed to be here with this illustrious panel. Although you were just introduced, would you please mind saying a little bit more than just your title? Can we start with you, Bob?
A little bit more. My name's Bob Sherwin. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Wayfair. I'm also responsible for a few of our service offerings as well, so financing and our loyalty program and design and installation services. I've been there 10 years, so kind of grew up as a marketer within Wayfair, having spent my prior career, or previous chapter in management consulting. So I came in with a data focus from the get-go as a performance marketer, and then now have evolved into a full-fledged, full-stack marketer. So it's been a fun personal journey, as well as helping grow the Wayfair brand from kind of a unknown brand when I joined, very few customers, to now 85% aided awareness, and now we're working on that brand preference side of things.
So hi, I'm Donna Murphy. I'm the global CEO of Havas Creative and Havas Health and You. And I have the lucky job of overseeing both our creative and our health businesses globally. We brought the two of them closer together a year ago because of the convergence of health and the way the market is moving, and that area has never been more exciting. I've also been with Havas for a bit over 30 years, which is highly unusual today, but I had a bunch of folks that never told me no. And I'm also very lucky that both of these gentlemen are our clients.
Great, thank you. I'm Blair, Waite. I work with Astellas Pharmaceuticals, and I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for about 30 years myself, and been really blessed to work on products like Prozac back in the day. About 20 years ago, I launched Cialis globally, and now I get to work on a new product coming out for menopause. So I've had the pleasure of breaking taboos over the last 30 years of my industry, and great to have a partner like Havas that has helped us do that.
Excellent. Thank you. So let's see. So we're at the world's most famous creative festival. So that's interesting. And that festival is generated by the needs to tell stories. Some of the tenets of marketing haven't changed for centuries. We got to tell a story, and then we got to tell the story to the right people. We got to get them to create an action. But in probably the past 25 years, with the internet coming along, the role of convenience has been so critical to us. We've adapted as consumers. We want things better, faster, quicker, all this time. But yet we have to tell both mass awareness stories and personalized stories. So Blair, can you please tell us, you mentioned that you helped launch Cialis, and now you're working on a menopause effort. Two critical efforts for two constituencies of the human population. Mass awareness, but yet there must be a notion of personalization. How do you do both?
Yeah, it's really hard to do. Launching Cialis was actually pretty easy because men don't talk to men about their ED. There was no social media, so it really was mass advertising. So you could control your message quite well. You had your message, and other than the talk shows who would make fun of it, you still could control that. And it was a pretty simple story. Menopause is very different, first of all, from a condition. Every woman experiences it completely differently. Women are willing to talk to other women about the condition. They're willing to talk to healthcare professionals, or at least they're moving that way a lot more. And the social media is available now for them to have that conversation. That just didn't exist 20 years ago to the same degree. So we now have this challenge of how do you still talk on mass media. You know, we had a commercial during the Super Bowl last year. So how do you share a story in a big situation like that, at the same time allow for that personal story to happen as well? And the key, I think, what we find, and we're very limited in our industry of what we can say and how we need to protect privacy. So the biggest thing we can do is encourage that conversation in those platforms. Not about our product even, just about menopause, about the experience and sharing that. And the more that women can talk to women or men or doctors, they can have those personal conversations in those situations.
I just want to add to that. I think in pharma, it's not always about mass awareness, it's about education. It's about educating the consumer and the patient about the options that are available for them to go in and have a conversation that they may not normally be aware of, to be their own health advocate for themselves or family member or friend to drive it forward. So education is a very key part in awareness.
So speaking of that education, Havas, which I read, was founded in 1833,
By Charles Havas.
and here we are in France.
Actual
And it's-
gentleman.
Here we are. We're back. So you just launched a meaningful brands report, focused on the healthcare and health and wellness area. Can you give us a high level of that and what you found interesting or maybe reaffirming?
So a bunch of different things. So our general meaningful awareness has many years also said if 70% to 75% of the brands disappeared today, no one would care. Kind of interesting if you think about what we do every day, and that's how consumers feel. And when you switch it over to healthcare, in the top 50 products, there are no healthcare drugs in the top 50. Well, why isn't that? And I think there's a shift now, because for many years we have driven products, and I think brands have to be shifted for healthcare versus product to move that pendulum and really drive a brand.
Anything you want to add to that notion of that brand? Because I would think that something like Cialis would be in up there.
Yeah,
No pun intended.
it's certainly well known. You know, those names are out there, are well known, and people recognize them. But it takes a lot to build a brand like that,
Yeah.
and to build that deeper meaning. One of the things that we're learning right now, and I think we're gonna see things change as the millennials continue to come along, is the demand for more understanding of the science of the product of the whole brand, not just okay, the doctor said I should use it, then I should, but to really own it. I think that hopefully will start changing that as well, and that'll be our job: is how do you tie that together in a way that becomes a true brand and not just the science or not just what the doctor recommends.
So Bob, let's switch a little bit over to your category. You're sitting on gobs and gobs of data, the opportunity to personalize an experience for someone and then leverage that for storytelling. Can you walk us through how you're approaching that, sitting on your landscape?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's many parallels but also differences. So Wayfair is focused on the home category, furniture, decor, large appliances, and when we think about storytelling, we do have to take a mass approach. Using television, we use a lot of catalogs to tell part of our story, but that by nature has to be a bit more generic. But that's very important for us because we're digitally native. We do sit on a lot of data, and we do think about how to best activate that, and we use a lot of it. And the reality is, when you're buying for home, it's a super personal thing. What home that you love, that you're proud of, that you enjoy, is very unique and individualized. So what we try to do is tell the generic story that Wayfair is a platform that you can build that home of your dreams on. But then once you start engaging with us, we try to quickly start tailoring that for you, whether depending on the size of the project you're undertaking, depending on your budget, depending on your style that you're trying to pull together, and then depending on if you want to do it yourself, we try to make the experience very frictionless and allow you to do it yourself. And if you want help, we try to make it very clear that there are, great teams of people that can help you at every stage of the journey. So we try to showcase that to people, whether you need help with a designer or help with a technical sales specialist that can help you pick the right stovetop for your kitchen area, or whether you need help assembling the product once it gets delivered to you. So depending on where you are in the journey, is kind of when we start thinking about what is this individual looking to do? Where do they want help? How can we help them with great product recommendations? That's the most obvious way we personalize things. Or if they're looking for inspiration, it would maybe more how do we showcase styles that we think match their needs and their preferences based on other things they've browsed and engaged with in the past. So a bit of using that data from where they are in the funnel, but also using data from past visits and purchases to kind of predict what might be most useful to them. And what we found out is what's best for the customer, if we can personalize it more, ends up being best for the business as well in the long run, because we see the more we can tailor and personalize people and hone them in on the part of the catalog that's most relevant to them, the better like lifetime value we get, from them. They're more prone to repeat with us and more prone to be happy with their purchases.
Excellent. So, Donna, I have a question for you. In regards to Blair's comments about there's so much education, you reaffirm that. And we have, in that case, a couple touch points. Friends, family, doctors. Now you have to go and build creatives respectively for those audiences. So you have almost infinite number of ways from your data modeling to create this story, but then you also have to bring it back down to the actual practical approach of which channel needs what, where is it going to resonate. Can you give us the thinking process on how you can bring that tailored?
Sure. It starts and ends with data, right? Which is not new to any of us, which will help drive the strategy and the creative, of which we build a broad platform. But fortunately for modular content and for predictive analytics, we're then able to analyze the data and bring it down. It's a bit more complicated in RX because we're dealing with HCPs, we're dealing with consumers, we're dealing with payers, right? Insurance companies. So in a regulated environment, which even makes it more critical. But in the end, for the most part, we're able to do it with modular content and bring it down just as we are in the consumer world.
So you talked a little bit about on your on-site, your off-site efforts at Wayfair. Are you also bringing forth the learnings that you're there with this notion of tailored creative messaging on the fly? Is there dynamic notions of that that's critical, that you rely on more? Or are you building brand in the topper funnel?
Yeah, we're doing both. We're building brand and upper funnel, but when we are able to or target a segment of customers with a unique message, we absolutely do leverage that data to kind of inform what we're going to talk to them about. And that could be a category that we're launching or a new sub-brand that we're launching, and we will try to target that or prioritize that message to the audience that we predict it'll resonate more with. And again, we measure all that through where do we see a lift in lifetime value. That's how we determine whether that was successful or not. So we've created a feedback loop that informs our decision engine that says what should we talk to Blair about versus Donna versus John, and it'll probably be different things. And it's hard, you can't really do that on TV advertising on linear, but you can do that on direct mail and catalogs. You can certainly do it on digital assets as well.
So Blair, can you walk us through, I guess, the reverse of that? Because I guess you're missing some signals and...
Yeah. So the good news is very slowly, the pharmaceutical industry is moving to more big data and AI, but we're very limited, right? We don't have patient information, nor should we have patient information, right? That's really precious to people and confidential. We do have data for healthcare professionals, so we've got a full omni-channel approach to that, and we continue to learn and get better on how do we get the right message to the right physician at the right time. So we're learning there. But on the consumer side, it's very different. And I love the idea that you can help people decide what fits their style or whatever. We would love to do that. We would love patients to call us and have help on any number of our products, other products, whatever. We're not allowed to play that role. That's a religious role between the doctor and the patient. I mean, we should not be playing a part in that role. So, what a great opportunity you have, but those are some of the challenges that we have is the inability to collect the data for patients and then to be able to really leverage it or use it. And then there's still that complexity, too, of convincing the doctor doesn't do anything, convincing the patient doesn't do anything. The two have to come together and agree. So there's that, not to mention the payer, as you mentioned as well, is a whole new, another layer as well.
Can you talk a little bit more about what you're working on now with menopause? It's such a generic term, but also, you mentioned previously, affects women in so many different ways. Can you talk about how you think through that tailoring messaging?
Yeah, I think the starting point, and I'll argue a little bit, it's not necessarily starting with the data, it's just starting to listen to the patient. So we've talked to over 10,000 women worldwide about their experience, and we've learned that there's about 10,000 different experiences for those ladies. And it's such a big part of life, and there's so many impacts it can have on all different parts of the body, and we're playing one role in that. But even bigger than that, the taboo, the movement that's starting to happen. If anybody here is from the UK, menopause is in the media all the time. There's a lot of discussion about it. If you went and listened to Halle Berry yesterday, she was talking about menopause. So it's starting to have some conversation and openness and dialogue. So I think that'll make it really quite interesting as well. But there's a lot to know. Doctors get less than a day of training on menopause. You know, that is just terrible. My daughters talked to me very openly about going through puberty. They had lots of support about what to expect, what that experience is like. There's nothing like that for women about to go through menopause. There is no discussion and very little discussion with men involved, even as well.
So true.
So Donna, with 30 years in the health practice, if you will, and the creative side of it, what are you seeing in the future? Like, can you give us a little bit of like what your gut's telling you, what we should be expecting now that we're all talking more and more to the examples that Blair just gave us? Are you so thankful that social media is giving you these new signals? Are you wishing that there's not so much noise in there? Like, where are you talking to customers about?
So I think noise is great. That's how we're going to learn. But one thing that's helping us on the RX side is predictive analytics, right? So we're taking all the noise out there, and based on that, with the data and the noise, we're able to predict where the patients are and what they need and how we can help them, which is tremendous in this environment, that we could get to the patients even before they're ready.
Yeah, that's critical. So Bob, in previous roles, you've helped brands improve data infrastructure and operational efficiency, right? So how are you leveraging the big data and then adding in pieces of AI, which is advertising intelligence, just for everybody's sake? It's not artificial, it's advertising content. Artificial intelligence. Can you talk about operational structure of efficiency there?
Yeah, I think, I was pretty lucky when I came into my role because we were, founded by two, engineers, very analytical folks, and we were able to invest a lot in the data infrastructure and just using data as a way to make decisions and all that. So my early days were really making sure that the information, how that flowed, and for my teams to be able to access that data easily was something that we prioritized. So we had good feedback loops and could make sure our marketing efforts were working and they were achieving the ROI that we aligned with the CEO and the CFO against. From there, it started becoming pretty obvious how we could do a better job with that data to inform our targeting algorithms and create bidding algorithms for every channel where you can do that. And over time, those went from like strong heuristics that are really analytical, 25-year-old could put together, to then evolved into something that was built by a data scientist that was more of a machine learning model that both informed bid levels, informed whether we should send this direct mail piece or this email to the customer or not, as well as now the creative messaging that we were talking about earlier. So I think data is kind of like the backbone to activate on all, to really create an AI or machine learning system. And there's plenty of use cases within marketing on how we talk to the customer, if we should talk to the customer or not, is it worth it? So for us, it's been critical from the get-go, and it's just a constant evolution. And as soon as you think you figured it out, the ecosystem changes, whether that's a privacy change or a new ad platform stood up. So you're always just constantly evolving, or your old tech stack no longer is relevant for some reason, right? It's too brittle, so you have to just constantly reinvest and rethink what's going to carry you forward for the next few years at least.
So Donna, can you tell us if you're using any AI tools to help build creative messaging?
So interestingly enough, AI isn't new, right? We've all been using AI for years in media and programmatic. So we have our creatives now testing and learning, but don't publish. And we're going through it. And we're actually viewing it as a real challenge and an opportunity. We believe it's going to raise the creative bar. There is such noise out there with content and trying to get through the content. And AI is going to deliver standardized content. So how are we going to break through that? We're going to have to raise the bar for creativity more than it's ever been, to break through the clutter, to really deliver. And with that, we're going to need very bold clients that are willing to take a risk. So if we have those two elements, we really welcome the challenge and view it as an opportunity.
I love that notion of standardized content. So my company has dynamic creative optimization technology, and an agency recently asked us to build an API to ChatGPT so that they could make queries on the fly and then populate creatives and banners. And the results were staggering. They did how their people themselves came up with the idea for their target audience, 2 target audiences, and then they let the AI go through it. And the AI banners were 10x more effective. 10x. Now it's a sample of 1, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. So I don't want to go down that road. But I think Andy Warhol said it best, and they asked him, "Hey, this is in the late '70s." They asked Andy Warhol, whoever it was, said, "Hey, what do you think about computers?" And he said, "Well, computers are stupid. They only know the answers." So it's on us to ask the questions, right? So that's where AI is, to your point, this standardized template. Is it coming into your world, Blair?
Yeah, it is. And when I started, when I was with Prozac selling it, right, I had a printed piece and it would have Caucasian people in it. And I'd go to a doctor in an Indian section of Toronto, and it's completely irrelevant to them. Completely irrelevant to them. You know, we were so simple in the approach we had. So, of course, we're learning a lot more now about how do you geo-target, how do you find where they are and what they're looking for, what is, being relevant to them in the places that they're going, whether it's a healthcare professional or other. So we're getting there. We got a long ways to go still, and we're learning, but on the right path.
It'll absolutely get there. But what it will do is it'll replace repeatable tasks and hopefully allow our creatives. I'm going to share an example with you that I heard yesterday. So one of our young lions from Havas is very active on LinkedIn. She's a great influencer. She went to ChatGPT and she typed in, what would a profile be of a conjurer? And a picture of 4 white males popped up. It's not perfect.
Interesting. Super interesting. So I know there's microphones floating around, so if you want to get ready for questions, but before we do that, Bob, do you have a use case, like something that you probably could put on the shelf and say, I crushed that through your past, that the audience would like to hear that's relevant for this?
That's a high bar. I feel like I've never crushed anything perfectly because when you're close to it, you already know the gaps. I'd say probably one of the things I'm most proud of that's helped me a lot and helped us invest a lot in advertising and feel good about that is really our model, which is AI based. It's machine learning. That is our primary measurement framework for how we evaluate every touch point with every customer and how much credit we give that touch point if that individual ends up purchasing. And it's quite advanced and it's way more sophisticated than I could ever build, but I think I was the proponent of it and helped evolve it every step of the way. But that'd probably be the single most exciting thing internally. And then externally, I would say, hey, we didn't have a direct mail or catalog program when I joined. People laughed and said, that sounds so old school. Now that's one of our most efficient and effective channels and a big part of our storytelling. So that would probably be the second. And then the next chapter is going to be, I think, our physical retail footprint, which we've been launching into the last couple of years. And that's been something I built a team for. We opened our first 4 stores and many more to come. And I think 20 years from now, when I look back on what we built at Wayfair, that'll probably be the thing that takes us from $10 billion to $100 billion. So it's probably
Bang.
that.
It's a big mantle.
Yeah.
What do you have a favorite creative moment?
So I have a favorite moment. Actually, I'm going to flip to the softer side. So, of course, we want to deliver brilliant results for our clients first and foremost and hope to continue to drive their business. But on the softer side, I'm really proud of the culture we built at Havas. I think it's a unique differentiator. It's why we're there every day, and it's about the people. And to me, that's the most important thing.
Excellent.
So I've just had so many great opportunities and built some really amazing teams. I have to tell you, having a team of folks that range from a lady from China, a physician from France, a guy who worked for Coca-Cola in Latin America, bringing that diversity together and leveraging that. I don't think I've enjoyed anything more than that. Certainly Astellas was a really great experience, something that was third to market and then went on to become number 1 and to really based on fundamental insight and fundamental great branding and creative. And I'm always curious, maybe I'll go right into the first question of, so how do you take mass data? I think this is the biggest challenge I found is how do you take mass data and turn that into an insight that you can then leverage into something deep? It certainly helps us with the individualization without question, but how do you use those data as well then to be able to turn that into something that leads to great creative? And I don't know that there's, I'm a mechanical engineer by background, but I've spent my whole life more on the creative side of things. I don't know a lot of people who kind of are in that middle ground of interpreting and turning that data from just, this is what people do into this is why they do it, right? This is how they think or how they feel, even more important. I think that's still a challenge to do. I'd love, Bob, your experience on that, and you've been in that intersection, Donna, as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we view creative as like everything else. It's every new launch we view it as a test, right? We're gonna it's gonna win and perform better than the incumbent, or we're gonna learn something from it, and ideally both, right? That we try to learn something from it and build those insights and that learned intuition within our creative teams as well as our analytical marketers, right?
I have more questions, but does anybody in the audience have a question? Okie dokie. So somebody's getting started into the same line of career that you are all in, and they're just coming out of school, whatever school that is. What are you going to tell them? Who wants to go first?
I can jump in. I'm exactly the wrong person to be doing the job that I do in many, many ways, right? So I was a 30-year-old kid launching Cialis to middle-aged men, and I thought I knew everything, like most 30-year-old kids. And thankfully, had some really great coaching, and more importantly, people said, listen to the customer. I mean, it's so fundamental. Listen to the customer. And here I am now launching a menopause product. Again, perfectly qualified, right? As a white Caucasian male. But you know what? Listening, so again, 10,000 conversations to try to understand what that experience is, what it's like for minorities, what it's like for the LGBTQ plus community. And as long as, I've always said, if you don't have an opinion, you just represent the opinion of your customers, you're going to be safe. But as soon as you start bringing in your own point of view, you're not going to be successful at all. And I've learned that the hard way. but yeah, that's why I share.
Yes. Donna?
I'm going to flip over to the agency side. And what I tell all the young folks, volunteer for a pitch. Get in the middle of the pitch, drive that pitch. You'll learn more than you have in your career. But not only that, the feeling of winning is bar none.
I think telling a team they won may be even better, though.
I loved when you called.
That's awesome. Do you
Yeah,
want to
maybe
bring
I
us
would
home?
say if I were, to someone new that joined or to myself, I'd say view everything as a test and launch that first test as quickly as you can, because what I found is that makes people that are generally risk averse, they're in a new job. If you view it as a test and it doesn't work out, that's okay. Versus it being something that you're, like putting your career against, right? Or there's more risk when people think of it that way.
Excellent. Well, it's truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and for your memorable insights. Thank you all for being here with us. Take care.